Today I'm going to be talking to you about buying your first investment property. Not only that, but buying it in the next 60 days. You'll also walk away with the foundational knowledge of actually building $1 million portfolio. So let's jump right in. Why are we here? Well, we're here to learn about how to buy a first investment property in the next 60 days. Rental property, fix and flip, another type of property. We'll dive into the strategies. You're looking for financial freedom and security through real estate, to take care of your family, also to travel more frequently, and to impact the community. These are all great reasons and more. Some pictures right here to share with you. This is one of my rental properties, this blue house. It's nothing fancy, but it's a great cash flowing asset. Right here on the left, one of my business partners and I, this was closing on our first commercial property together. And then this is my wife and I on the beaches of Greece. I'm Greek, but the beaches of Greece where we love to travel to. All these things real estate has afforded me, these relationships, these abilities to travel, to house people and care for them. So I hope that you're here to learn about how to do so as well. Just a little outline of today's presentation, today's webinar. We're going to be talking about the why. So I'll touch on that in this slide right here, but also strategies, searching for properties, analyzing those properties to make sure you're buying a good investment, financing them, because most people don't just have the cash to buy, and if you do, that's wonderful. You won't have to worry about financing. But even then, financing help leverage the cash that you have to buy exponentially more investments. And then to wrap it up, we're going to talk about the ownership part. Once you actually attain and acquire the property, how does ownership look? And then we're going to do an open Q&A. So make sure you stay till the end to talk about any questions you have that I maybe didn't answer during the presentation. I'm happy to answer. So in this one right here, I'll talk to you a little bit about my personal why. I already touched on that. I love to travel. I love to house people. I love to build relationships. Right here, this first picture, I'm at Lowe's with my brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law is just a couple years younger than me, but he has autism. And it makes it really difficult for him to work in a normal workplace. So whenever he visits me, he usually stays for about a month at a time. I always take him to Lowe's, to my work sites, and he has a great time. And I'm also able to afford him the experience and the ability to actually work. So that's a huge reason why for me. The one on the right, this was actually a mail away closing I did in Massachusetts. I was buying a property in Virginia, and I had a trip planned to Massachusetts. And so what I did was I met a public notary at the library and signed the papers, FedExed them off, and that was my closing. So additionally, just the ability to travel and the flexibility that real estate provides. And the bottom one, actually, today's Saturday, so this past Thursday, March 14th, marked 8 years of my mom's passing. And this is a picture of myself and my parents the year before she passed away from brain cancer. So just seeing how life is short is a huge reason why for me. I didn't get the chance to essentially become successful and take care of her. Still have my dad that I'm able to give back to once I do really have a great portfolio to support him in his retirement. But so far, these are a lot of the reasons for me personally. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So my father worked 14-hour days growing up. He worked a lot. He wasn't around a whole lot and providing for us by being at work, but at the same time, wasn't bringing in lots of cash. And so, we were on a budget, and he wasn't around a whole lot. So that's a big reason why I want to invest. Additionally, my mom passed away, like I just shared with you, 2 weeks after my 19th birthday. It's been 8 years now. It's pretty crazy. I just turned 27 a few weeks ago. And so that's something, a big reason. And I knew I wanted to live a life of financial and time freedom, but I really did not know how to achieve it. So I went to college and I graduated and I went right into the corporate world. This is a typical path for most people, and even if you don't go to college, most people are in the adult world working, corporate, other jobs, whatever it may be. And I realized that investing in real estate would help me create the life I dreamed of. I started learning about real estate in college. I actually got my first rental property in college, and through that experience, through learning a lot on YouTube, a lot on webinars like this, working with mentors, I learned that real estate would afford me the life that I dreamed of. I just turned 27, like I mentioned, and a milestone I hit, which I'm really proud of, is I owned 27 properties before I turned 27. That was myself and my wife, myself and partners, but overall, I hit that milestone, and it's been absolutely incredible. I've completed and documented so many projects that friends, family, and honestly, mostly strangers were bombarding me nonstop with questions and calls. So now I work with new investors who have little to no experience, and I help them start their portfolio and build their portfolios with under 5 hours a week of commitment and work on their part. So let's dive into the strategies. So there are a number of real estate strategies. I'm going to touch on 4 of them today, and these are the great starter strategies that you can jump into real estate in owning the properties. So the first one is house hacking. It's semi-passive, it's a long-term investment, it has a low financial entry, and it's mainly focused on appreciation and just having that asset. Appreciation is the equity gain, the value your property gains over time. House hacking is a wonderful one to start and build a foundational piece of your portfolio. The next one is buy and hold rentals. So it's more hands-off, more passive. It is a long-term investment. You would want to hold it at least 1 year. And you're also, banking on appreciation, and not banking on it. The numbers and the statistics don't lie. But in this asset, you're not looking to just generate a ton of cash up front. You're going to hold on to it and let it grow in value. And that's where majority of your return on investment will be. But you'll also have cash flow, monthly mailbox money from the tenant paying rent every month after you pay all your expenses. That net income is cash flow straight to you. And the beautiful thing about buy and hold rentals is that there are lots of tax benefits. So most of the time that income can be deducted from all your rental expenses and can turn out to be tax-free sometimes. Tax-free income, who doesn't want that? Another one, and I'm going to combine these two because they start out the same, but the exit strategy is different. So a fix and flip is going to be a property where you buy it, needs renovation, you fix it up, and you sell it. Well, the BRRRR strategy stands for buy, renovate, refinance, or rent, refinance, and repeat. So that means you're going to find the same type of property that needs a lot of work or just needs work, and then fix it up. But instead of selling it, you're actually going to rent that out to a tenant like you would for a buy and hold, and then you're going to refinance that loan with a bank so that you can get a 30-year mortgage on it. And you're going to rent it out just like a buy and hold. So that'll become an asset to your portfolio rather than selling that for some cash. It's more hands-on and active because you're managing a project. There's construction work to do, renovation work to do. It's typically a short-term investment on the fix and flip side since you'll be selling it, long-term on the BRRRR. It's forced appreciation. So in both strategies, the fix and flip and BRRRR, you're going to be buying a property that's undervalued because it's not up to market conditions as far as looks and maintenance and things like that. And you're going to be doing that work and forcing that appreciation. If you buy a property that needs a ton of work and you fix it up, you're going to be adding value right there immediately. And you'd like to multiply your cash quickly. This can actually be true for both the fix and flip and the BRRRR. Mostly true for the fix and flip because you're going to be putting money in and getting great profits out. The BRRRR strategy, you can do something called a cash out refinance. And that cash out refinance will likely bring your cash back, create equity, a ton of equity, like we said, forced appreciation in the property. So that goes to your net worth. It may not be liquid cash you can use, but those are the 2 strategies there. And then BRRRR is active and passive, short and long-term investment, and you have tax-free income when you cash out refinance. So I'll jump into these. House hacking is great because most Americans' number one asset is their primary residence, the home that they live in. I'm here in my home office. This is a huge asset for me. And the reason being is because you can leverage low down payment loans, mortgages. FHA mortgage, you can go down as far as 3.5%. Conventional, mostly they offer 5% as the lowest, but there's even some exceptions. Lenders will offer you 3% down. this is incredibly great to leverage to start your real estate portfolio. It's by buying a house to live in, using these low down payments, build a portfolio foundation. This is going to be your first asset. You can live with roommates, or maybe you have a significant other, and rather than paying rent somewhere, you guys pay the mortgage. Your roommates, they pay you rent that covers your mortgage. So not only is your asset getting paid for, right, your house and your mortgage getting paid for, but oftentimes your living expenses are greatly reduced if you're house hacking with roommates. Additionally, you could even cash flow if they're paying enough. Another thing is, when you own your own home, if you own it at least 2 out of 5 years and you sell, you can sell it. You can live in it for 2 years and sell. You can live in it 1 year, move out for 3, live in it again and sell it. Any combination of 2 out of the last 5 years prior to your sale, you can take tax-free profits. You don't have to pay income taxes on that sale, capital gains taxes. It's $250,000 is excluded from being taxed if you're single, and $500,000 if you're married filing jointly. This is a strategy many people use. They'll just buy a house, live in it for a few years, let it appreciate. Maybe they'll do a little bit of DIY work along the way, and then they sell it. They take those profits, they buy another one, and they keep building there. That's one strategy. Example, I purchased my first primary residence in 2020 for $178,000. Just like 3.5 years ago, okay? It's presently valued at $275 conservatively, so it's gone up about $100,000 in the last 3.5 years, and it cash flows $600 a month because now I rent it out. So this is a great foundational piece, and this is house hacking. So a buy and hold rental is kind of similar, and you would do a buy and hold rental because you're likely busy with life and work. You want a solid asset that pays you now and in the future, but you may not want to manage it too much and spend too much time on it. Kind of set it and forget it, like you might do your stocks. You want to diversify your investments from stocks. You don't want to just hold 401k, IRA, stock investments. You want to diversify into a hard asset like real estate that gains value with appreciation and is a protection against inflation. You have a long-term vision, so you can see how much value you'll gain by holding this asset long-term. I purchased my first rental in 2017 when I was in college for $175,000, and is presently valued at $335,000 conservatively. So it's gone up $160,000 the last 6.5 years. It only started with a $35,000 down payment, and so if you were to look at that and invest that $35,000 at the same time, June 2017, in the stock market, the final value today would only be about $62,000. It would have only gained $27,000 of appreciation versus $160,000. I mean, these are huge differences just by owning real estate. And guess what? It has cash flowed the entire time. So fix and flip is going to be, you want to multiply your starter funds quickly. You have time to manage the process, manage the contractors, make sure everything is in order, keeping everything on the timeline. One of my clients, just an example, he just purchased a fix and flip for $54,000. That was his purchase price of the property, and they were asking $90,000. So off the bat, he got $36,000 off to add to his value, basically. And this property was off market. It was not advertised on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com. It was off market, so I helped him find that. He started with $17,000. That was his total out of pocket. You can see it right here where my cursor is, sale costs. Purchase out of pocket, $17,663. So he started with $17,000. It's about a 3 to 4 month turnaround from purchase to sale. So he bought it. He's doing about a month to month and a half of work. Then we'll market the property, and then it takes usually 30 days to close. So we'll give it a few weeks for marketing, and then we'll close on the sale within the 4-month period. His projected net profit after all expenses, after recouping his investment, is $47,000 from an initial investment of only $17,000. So he's grossing $64,000, take out the $17,000, he's left with $47,000 profit in 4 months. A BRRRR strategy I touched on earlier, but That's going to be a combination of the buy and hold and the fix and flip, right? You have time to manage your renovation, but you also want short-term tax-free income and long-term cash flow and appreciation. It's a beautiful mix of the two, of the buy and hold and the fix and flip. My first North Carolina burr project was this property right here. It's a beautiful picture in the snow. It doesn't snow too much out here, but this is a cool one we grabbed. Purchased it at $78,000 off market. It wasn't marketed online or on Realtor.com, Zillow, things like that. We invested only $9,000 in repairs. So our total out of pocket with down payment and repairs and things like that was $19,500. And after we fixed it up, it was appraised at $158,000, over double. I mean, that's in a matter of a couple months. And so we refinanced it at a value of 65% of 158,000. So the new loan we took out was $102,000. So we cashed out the difference between our initial investment, which means on my refinance, the bank paid me $38,500. So I recouped my initial investment of $19,500, and I took $19,000 in net profit. And that was tax-free because on a refinance, it's basically like I'm getting a loan, okay? Because I'm putting a long-term loan on the property. So I took that $19,000 and I didn't have to pay any income taxes on it. And now this property cash flows $300 a month. It's not a whole lot, but the upfront investment is great. We left, what was that? $56,000 in equity, and it's already appreciated. So if we sold it, we'd get that $56,000 and make a ton of money. But that's not the goal. The goal is to hold on to it. Now, let's talk about picking a market. Those are the strategies, but how do you pick a market? You definitely want to pick a market that is landlord friendly, okay? It's great if you're renting to live in a renter friendly state. You have a lot more protections. But if you're investing your hard-earned cash, if you're investing in an asset, you want to be as protected as possible. So I have a graph over here, and those red states are the more landlord friendly states, and that's based off of the legislation, the laws, things like that. The blue are more renter friendly states. You also want to look at the population growth in the market you're looking at. So not just the states, but the actual cities. Is the population steady or increasing? You want to take a look at that. As well as the business development. Are businesses moving to the area? Is there business growth and stimulation from the city? What are the crime rates? Crime is inevitable everywhere, honestly, but you just want to make sure you're not in a neighborhood with, chronic murders and things like that. That's going to be a tough property to get contractors to work. It's going to be a tough property to rent out at a high market value, and then if you're flipping it, to sell. And then price to rent ratio. So you want to make sure that your price to rent ratio is 15 and under, and that means that to buy the home versus to rent the home, it's more beneficial to buy, but in every market there are renters, and they may rent because they're there for a short season, maybe they don't have enough money to buy. So even if you're investing in a market where it's better to buy than rent, you're winning right there, because that means you're buying a property that can rent and cash flow really well. These are some of the top three. In North Carolina, I heavily invest in Fayetteville. It's one of my favorite markets. It's anchored by the largest Army base in the United States, formerly Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, and also Cape Fear Valley hospital system, right on I-95, which goes from Florida all the way up to, I think, Maine. Honestly, it's a highway all the way up and down the East Coast. All right, so now how do we find a property? You can get on a broker search. I have all my clients on a search that I automatically put them in the MLS, where as soon as a house hits the market that fits their criteria, they get it in their email inbox, because speed is key when you're investing. You can also search Realtor.com, Zillow, Redfin, all those on-market property advertisement websites, but also InvestorLift.com. Wonderful website, and it's all off-market. Craigslist is a great place. I've actually purchased a number of properties, as well as Facebook. Facebook has a lot of off-market properties posted daily. And what you would do if you were to search for properties on Facebook is search the city that you're looking for. Let's say Fayetteville, wholesale real estate. Or Fayetteville Real Estate Investors. These are two that you can search in order to find groups that list properties, have other investors, have contractor recommendations, things like that. You can also meet with wholesalers. Wholesalers are great sources of properties because they're directly getting the property from the seller. So a wholesaler is doing all the work up front, talking to sellers, negotiating, blah, 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 getting you a property at a really low price that you can then invest in and rent out or fix or whatnot. How do you meet these wholesalers? Well, on the Facebook groups, you can meet them there. You can also go to local real estate meetups and meet them there. Facebook groups, like I said, and investorlift.com is a lot of where wholesalers are. You would just want to reach out and say, hey, my name is Dimitri Christie. I'm an investor looking in this market. These are the types of properties I'm looking for. Please add me to your list. I'd love to. I'm looking to buy soon. Whether you are or not, it's great to share with them and get on their list and say that you have the intentions of buying. Because in all hopes, especially if you're on here, you do. Now, how do you pick a property? I recommend, you can do whatever you like, of course, but I recommend to pick a property that's built in the 1960s or newer. At this point in time, we're already 60 years down the line, so this property is going to be 60 years old anyway. If we go any older, you run into problems with cast iron pipes, foundation, all sorts of issues. Then your condition. Now, if you're looking to do a buy and hold rental or a house hack, you likely want a property that is actually already fixed up, that's already good to go, turnkey, or needs a little bit of work. But if you're looking for a fix and flip or a burr, then you're probably going to want to buy a property that needs work. So the condition depends on your strategy. Size, I would say minimum a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. It's really hard to work with a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And so any smaller than 2-bedroom, 1-bath is kind of tough. Then your location, picking that market as we already went over, picking the right market, proximity to active areas. So once you narrow on the state, once you narrow in on the cities you want to invest in or the area, then you want to see, okay, what's the proximity to active areas like grocery stores, gyms, business sites, things like that. The neighborhood status. So this neighborhood right here may or may not be the best. We can't see the rest of the neighborhood on this picture, but if you find a neighborhood with a lot of homes that look like this, that are boarded up or beat up or vacant, maybe not the best place to invest. But if it's a mix of properties getting renovated and vacant homes or all, mostly maintained and nice homes, then that's great. And then crime, as I mentioned earlier, really don't want a whole lot of like murders or home invasions or things like that. Want to make sure that we're in a safe area. Then also flood zone. You can look on the FEMA.com website or FEMA.gov and see if your property is in a flood zone. The reason being is you likely will have to pay flood insurance, which is an additional cost and takes away from our profits if you're investing in a flood zone. Also, the risk of the flood itself. You may face that at any point in time. It's completely random. And although you have insurance, the headache that you'd have to deal with, I typically recommend people avoiding flood zones if at all possible. And then what returns are you looking for? For a buy and hold, you're looking at 12 to 20% cash on cash return. So we're trying to beat the stock market. Not only are we looking for a diversification of assets, not only looking for a hard asset, but we want an asset that beats the market. Because why else would you invest in real estate if you can just park money in the stock market and just leave it alone and not worry? Well, because we want to beat those investments and because we want the different advantages real estate offers over that. If you're doing a fix and flip, you want to look at 20% cash on cash return. Most of my clients are doubling their money, if not more, as you saw in the example above. And then the BRRRR strategy, you want your initial investment returned, as I showed in my example of that 19.5 getting returned to me. And then on a cash out refinance, you'd like to get as much out of it as possible for that tax-free income. And then you'd also like it after you refinance to cash flow, to be able to cover expenses and still pay you a monthly income. So financing a property. Let's talk about how you're going to finance a property now. Conventional financing is the most common financing when you're buying an investment property. You usually buy it in your personal name. You'll get a lower interest rate than some of these other strategies I'll mention. Your qualification is determined by your credit score, your debt to income ratio, your personal income, and you're likely to put 20 to 25% down. DSCR financing is financing that is in your LLC or company name. And even if you don't have one today, you can create one. It's quite inexpensive, maybe $150. I can walk you through that. And you'd buy it through your LLC and company name. Higher interest rate than conventional financing, but it's lower than hard money, which I'll get into. And this is because it's 20 to 30% down, which is about the same. You're gonna have closing costs, application fees, origination fees, doc fees, things like that. But this is not based off of your personal income or your debt to income ratio like conventional financing. It's actually based off of your credit score, which usually between 640 to 680 is a minimum that you would need. An appraisal of the property where the lender will send out an appraiser and determine the value so that way they know you're buying it at a good price and that they can fund the property properly. And the monthly rent. So will the rent cover the debt service, which is essentially your mortgage? So a DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. And that is because the loan is dependent on if the mortgage can be covered by the rent. Typically the minimum is 1-to-1. So if your mortgage and your expenses are $1,000, then the lender will want your rent to be minimum monthly $1,000. That's the 1-to-1 DSCR ratio that you're looking for. But if you can do your expenses are $1,000 and your rent is $1,250, then you're at a 1.25 ratio and you're set. Anything above 1 is usually great. So additional ways to finance a property is, and let me also mention, conventional and DSCR, you would be buying a buy and hold rental with these financing options, okay? Hard money is going to be for your fix and flip and your BRRRR, the first half of your BRRRR, actually. So this qualification is very similar to the DSCR qualification. It's based off of your credit score, the appraisal, and they oftentimes require you to have reserves. Since you're going to be doing a renovation project, they want you to have reserves available to support that. It will come with higher fees because it is short-term financing and more risky, naturally. So the lenders want to get paid accordingly. We always analyze and appropriately, we always analyze and appropriately consider the fees. That way you still know you're making money at the end. It's not going to be a surprise. So it's short-term financing between 6 months to a year, and it's used for renovation projects. Hard money financing is typically how you do a fix and flip. So when you sell a property, you'd be done with the loan. However, if you're doing a BRRRR strategy and you start with hard money financing, then what you would actually do is refinance with a DSCR loan, most likely, or conventional. But most likely, I see BRRRR strategy refinances being with DSCR loans. Creative financing is another way you can fund properties. I'm not going to go too far in depth on these, but you can do seller financing. Property must be free and clear, paid off, so that they can actually act as the bank. You can create custom terms between the buyer and seller. I've had a number of home run deals using this. And then another one is a lease option. So it's a lease that you sign with the owner. You don't get transferred ownership, but you have essentially control over that property because the option part gets you under contract with that owner to buy it at a later date. And if they wanted to sell it to someone else, they would have to first offer you and honor your agreement. So yeah, it's a lease option with a purchase at an agreed upon price. So when you sign the lease day one, you know, okay, we agree that I'm going to buy the property in 3 years at $200,000. Okay, so that price can't change, which is a beautiful piece. Yeah. For example, a 5-year lease option for $2,000 a month, you would pay a $10,000 option fee. If that's what you negotiated, you can negotiate $0, you can negotiate a $100,000 option fee, whatever you like. And that's going to be your down payment at a purchase price of $250,000. So you'd pay monthly and monthly $2,000 every month, and then down the line you'd pay them the balloon note. Balloon meaning at 5 years you would owe them that $250. But in all hopes, the property's worth 250 or less today. So in 5 years, it's worth much more, and you're gonna put yourself in a great position. So actually, as we're financing a property, I'd love to go through an example with you guys on finding a property, running the analysis, and then just deciding, if it's a good deal or not. So let me go ahead and share with you. So I'm sharing my screen. This is Realtor.com, and I'm going to show you on market, okay? So I talked a lot about off market, but this is the opportunities for on market. I like to search for 120K and under, and then I think this was the property. So it's a 3-bedroom, and when you're buying a rental property, the bedrooms always matter. The more bedrooms you have, the more you can charge in rent. So let's look at this one. Looks pretty nice outside, good and simple. Again, doesn't need to be anything complicated. Good interior. And this is just the eye test. Looks like they made some upgrades, so it'd likely be attractive for a renter to rent. Boom. Okay, so it's 119,000, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Let me show you in a mortgage calculator what you would be paying essentially. So we have 119,000, 20% down, and that down payment would be 23,800. Today's rate of 7.77%. It's a long-term loan, 30 years. I pulled the property taxes from the listing, so that's something you could do if you when you need information, property history. These are the prices of the rent and the asking price, but here they offer property taxes. So $891 was the most recent property tax update we have, so we're going to use that information, $891 a year. Homeowners insurance, about $900 in this area. This is just something that I know, but you can always call an insurance agent and say, hey, I'm looking at a property. How much would a landlord insurance be for here? And they'll tell you. And then there's no HOA on this property, but we're setting aside 10% for property management, and then an additional 10% for vacancy and maintenance costs. So our total monthly payment, with all of these expenses included, is going to be just under $1,200. Okay? Now, let me show you for this market what the market rents are. So you can go to this website, Fair Market Rents. I have it saved on my on here, so I'll just go North Carolina. That property is in Cumberland County. And then boom. So we see 2024 fair market rents for a 3-bedroom. That's the property we're looking at. $1,759. For round numbers, let's say $1,750 is the rent we can charge. And again, for round numbers, $1,200 is our monthly payment. What's the difference there between the rent and all of our expenses? $550. So you can buy this property for $23,800 down. If you buy it at asking price, that's not even negotiating down. And you can cash flow off the bat once you get a tenant in there for $550 a month. That's crazy. What would that do for you? And I mean, you saw how fast I found it. I mean, it's really not that hard, and these are on-market properties. I'll also give you access to off-market properties. So let's go back to the presentation. Let me finish it out for you, and let's get to Q&A at the end. So financing, we got through here. Now picking vendors. This is going to be picking vendors / ownership, okay? So an important one to buy and hold, to the BRRRR strategy when you're renting it out, is property management. You can manage on your own, but I prefer and I suggest handing it off to property management. They're professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. They have all the systems in place to screen tenants, to check on your properties. They have the handyman and the contractors to make any maintenance or repairs needed. So they really streamline it, and they really let you take it off your hands. So you own it, but they're managing for you. The way you want to find them is reliable Google reviews. You need to make sure that they have excellent communication, a quality track record, right? So that goes into the reviews, and then a thorough screening protocol. Additionally, they need to have reasonable fees. The typical fee range is 8 to 12% per month of the rents collected. And another thing about property managers is, just as we were talking about finding wholesalers and properties in those Facebook groups, you can also ask for recommendations from other investors about property management companies. it's really great to leverage your resources. I have a great list of property management companies I use and I recommend as well. So always, getting referrals, reading reviews, things like that. I love Google though. It's quite reliable. Same thing with contractors. Reliable Google reviews, excellent communication. These communications are going to be key to reduce your anxiety, to make sure that these people are taking care of your assets and caring about your projects accordingly, just as much as you do. It's your money. They have a quality track record, so you want to ask for their portfolio, look at before and after pictures, things like that. Again, yeah, impressive portfolio. They have a manageable payment schedule. So, some contractors, they require 30 to 60% deposit up front, and then they'll take payments along the way. That's something that sometimes they have standard, sometimes is negotiable. So just want to make sure that they have a manageable payment schedule. Their availability too. You wouldn't want to buy a property expecting to start work on March 30th and they're not available till April 30th. So you want to make sure their scheduling availability is in line with your project as well. So this is picking vendors and ownership. By working with contractors, working with property managers, you're going to want to be in contact with them. If a contractor is working on a project, maybe daily, every other day, with photo, text updates, video updates, things like that. In property management, you'd want monthly reports from them, any updates, and you'd want them to reach out to you if there was an issue so that you could approve a repair or address something at the property. This right here is a couple of pictures I have. This was me going with the sheriff on an eviction, actually, because I was managing this property myself. I had inherited this tenant, and I'd been working on getting them out because they paid the first few months and they stopped paying. And so, this was me going with the sheriff because I went through the whole eviction process and we were changing the locks that day. It's pretty crazy. And that's why it's so important to screen your tenants properly so you don't get to this point. But I've been there. It's not the end of the world. You can get through it. Happy to help you through it. And then, this is another one. Just showing one of my properties. The contractors just flipped out this light. Super simple, but before and after, it's a huge difference. Now I've taught you a lot of what you need to know about how to buy your first investment property. You can go out and do it on your own with no help, no support really. Learning as I did, trial by fire, probably losing thousands like I did. I'm just saying. Or you could work with an expert. So when you work with me as your mentor, you'll be able to get custom strategies tailored to you, your investment preferences, and your financial situation, as well as your time situation. I'll introduce you to investor-friendly brokers in any market that you choose, lenders, contractors, property managers, CPAs, and attorneys. I'll introduce you to all of these essential team members to your real estate investing business. You'll have off-market property access. The property I showed you in our analysis was on the market, but the off-market properties are always the best, just like my fix and flip investors and my burst strategy project I did. I'm going to be doing weekly classes, and not only that, but we're going to have group calls and guest speakers. I'll provide you with my property analysis worksheets, which I showed you on the on the slide of my fix and flip investor. And then we can also do one-on-one strategy sessions together. Regular emails I send out with analyzed properties already. So just as I went through and analyzed that real quick, I send out emails so that you can just say, oh, hey, I like this property. I want to get it. And then video course library access. So I go in depth in different topics, really zeroing in to teach you all the nuances and steps needed. And so I have those in a video course library that I'll provide you access. As well as online and live events, I give my mentorship members priority access. Do some Q&A with you guys. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. That way I can answer any questions you have. Boom. All right. Yeah. So the no-doc loans are going to be the DSCR loans, are going to be the hard money loans. DSCR is key because there's also not a limit. You're limited to 10 conventional loans, whether that be a mix of primary residence, like using the FHA loan, investment properties, using the conventional loan. So as far as options with bad credit, depends how bad. First, unfortunately, I would say you would want to work on increasing that, okay, and I'm sure you are. Secondarily, you can work on using some of those creative strategies. Those strategies don't require you to uh, have a credit check if you could do seller financing or lease options. And so those are going to be key, and we could definitely dive into those. I've done seller financing where I originally negotiated 10% down, and I got it down to 5 because we found some additional work that we needed to do. So that was killer. The best markets to be a landlord are going to be these these markets I shared with you, these states. Let me show you real quick. So yeah, I love to invest in North Carolina. I did mention I had properties in Virginia, and honestly, I got screwed in COVID because the tenants weren't required to pay rent. The state wasn't giving me rent. We had to go through a very lengthy process, and I didn't even get the funds until like 3 to 4 months later. And a couple of them I didn't ever get the request approved, which is just crazy to me. So Virginia, that's kind of a downfall of investing in a more renter-friendly state as an investor. Sure, it was better for them, but not for me. I had to carry all those expenses. So these red states are great. They're more landlord-friendly. But even Kentucky, Tennessee, and South Carolina are solid too. Those are good places to rent as well. But in North Carolina, I love Fayetteville. I love Fayetteville and the whole area from there to the triangle of Raleigh Durham over to Mebane and Burlington. But then there's also other markets like Little Rock, Arkansas, or Birmingham, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, Greenville, South Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot of good markets to pick. I live in North Carolina. I have a breadth of connections within North Carolina right now. The other part of it too that's key is the taxes that those properties, that those states implement on the properties. So I have some properties in Texas, but the margins on the profits keep getting smaller and smaller because the property taxes get reassessed every year. They have about a 2.5% tax rate, where in North Carolina we have 1% and under. And so that's also something key to keep in mind is the tax rates of those markets. I appreciate you all joining today. Please let me know if you have any follow-up questions, if you'd like to set up a meeting, or if you just like to join. Would love to have you and help you grow your financial freedom, your retirement security, your ability to travel freely, and help you impact communities around the states. And have a great day.